Today is my last installment of my observations from the AICPA Executive Roundtable. And what I want to share today are some thoughts and insights from some firm panels that they had at this event. One was a panel of larger firms of $50 million and above, and one was a panel of smaller firms. And there were some key themes of what they were experiencing, whether they were large or versus small, on implementing technology and really moving into this advisory services arena. So one of the things that they talked about from the large firm perspective is they haven't heard as much about voice activated AI as far as implementing that at their firms. But the biggest concern is still security, and it's the top of their list when they're implementing all this technology and making sure the APIs connecting all of these technology platforms that they decide to go with are secure, and that there's enough training on those integrations and how they work so that they can be more self-sufficient on the back end. The other thing that was an interesting conversation from the large firm perspective is on change management. And we know in bigger firms it's much harder to move the barge, that we've been doing things the same way for a long time. And some key things that they talked about that were important to move the needle was one, was the staff, the team, the other partners all need to understand the why behind why they're making the change. How is it going to improve their life? And not just from an ROI perspective, but literally a work-life perspective, right? And from the vendor perspective, really, truly, when you're working with firms of this size, that you have empathy for the stress that this puts on them, because they still have their workload as well as trying to do this change management at the same time. And many times during the sales process, they're told about the first steps that they're going through, but what their staff want to know is, once they do that step, what's the next step and the next step after it? And also making sure that there's a lot of training available for the staff and the team on just digital literacy and skill sets that are coming up, and really igniting that fire in the people that work for you to make them excited about new skill sets that they can attain. The other thing is that talking about staff and retaining staff in the larger firm space, they've really found that the new staff helps move technology forward, especially some of the younger generations, because they're more used to technology, and it then starts affecting all the digital literacy of the firm because they're sharing their knowledge about that. But what's really important is when you talk to the staff about your firm, that you find a way to retain them. And that's how technology helps, is when you can give remote work options, that they're not working so much overtime, that you've changed the way you deliver services. So in an advisory function or value pricing function, you move away from evaluating on chargeable hours versus on performance. The other thing that they talked about was client expectations and where they need to meet halfway with the client, and making sure that when they meet with the client, that those meetings are relevant and they're broader than compliance. And this is really where technology can lift that conversation. The thing as well is, in these larger firms of making these decisions with change management, often there's dissenting partners happening in this conversation. And so really trying to find those partners that are hungry for innovation, and maybe even thinking about your partnership comp structure, which a lot of times inhibits the growth of the firm, thinking of it as a corporation versus as individual partner revenue. So when you actually change the way people are compensated and think about yourself more as a corporation, how could that really change things? And there was a big call to vendors to help them with selling up or down in the firm, and not overselling or creating a lot of hype, and being really clear what works or doesn't work. And that leads me into my observations of the smaller firms. So The smaller firms definitely have a more entrepreneurial spirit. They're early adopters. They've got way more technology happening in their business because they don't have as large of a partner group and all of the history that they've got to do the change management with. They often are owner operators as well as having staff to help them. One of them had a great way of evaluating software that I want to share, that when she's in a sales conversation, part of her process not only is to research it on Google and find reviews, but she actually calls customer support and asks for help on certain areas of the product to get some of the real answers about whether the product works or not in certain areas so she can take that back to the sales team. So I thought that was a fantastic way to be able to get information. The other thing is, it was a big difference in getting everybody involved in the firm. Obviously, it's a smaller firm, but testing these solutions, getting feedback, bringing everyone along with you as you're making these changes so that they don't feel like things are going to happen and it's pushed on them. Instead, they're part of the process giving feedback along the way. They gave ideas of how to search for information about different types of technology, whether it's through community help centers, Google, picking up phone support, like I said. There was a big call to the vendors about customer support, and all of them, everyone on the panel, said customer support can kill a product for them. So that it's really important to invest the time in customer support. It's the make or break for them in being really happy with the software. They don't want to get on the phone with a customer support company and start from scratch. They've done their research. They're a more sophisticated user. So how are you serving that type of user in your customer support when you're thinking about that? Not starting over, did you turn your computer on and off and that type of thing, but meet them where they're at, making sure that you have the customer support experience to take them to the next level. All of them still said security is a big issue for them. It keeps them up at night. They don't have the budgets of the bigger firms, so they really rely on these vendors to provide that for them, as well as give them the information that they need to make sure that their clients feel protected as well. So I hope these insights have helped all of you in hearing what's going on in the profession. It was a great event again this year, and I look forward to sharing other insights throughout the year.